Hello and welcome to another edition of Arrow Insights. I'm Mathew Ashton, and today I'm joined with my colleague Simon Lewis. Today we're going to talk about liquidity and why it's important that we address this with our clients. So Simon, tell us a little bit about liquidity. Why do you think it's important?
Thanks, Matt. It's important when we're managing portfolios for clients that we take into account their goals and objectives. So, for instance, some clients may need some passive income within their portfolios. So it's important that when we're managing the portfolios, we allocate across assets that will provide the liquidity they need, particularly to meet their short-term needs.
So once we cover off on the immediate spending needs, the day-to-day things for our clients, what other things do we need to consider in terms of liquidity to meet our clients' expectations?
Sure. Firstly, it depends on the portfolio that we've got in place for them and how much liquidity we already have in the portfolio. But another consideration would be around market opportunities and being able to take advantage of those. So having some additional liquidity in the portfolio enables us to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. Different asset classes within the portfolio achieve returns at different times, and valuations may differ at different times. So when we see an opportunity to adjust the asset allocation for clients, having some additional liquidity in the portfolio enables us to do that.
And what about if something comes out of left field for a client?
So it definitely is important for clients to have liquidity available should there be some sort of event that impacts on their lives. An example might be where they have a health event and that they need additional funding to cover that. Or it could be that they're wanting to buy a new car or add another room onto their house. So understanding some of those medium-term goals and the possible liquidity needs when those events arise, or it might be an event they haven't planned for, having liquidity for those events is important too.
Yeah, and that's okay when markets are going well and tracking well, but what happens if we go through some sort of market downturn? What's the risk there if we don't have enough liquidity in the portfolio?
So the risk is that we may be exiting an asset class or a particular investment at a time when you don't want to. So liquidity is important. Also diversification within the portfolio. So we need the combination of the two because, as you mentioned, different asset classes behave differently at different times. So a combination of having that liquidity and also having that diversification will enable clients to realise capital or realise assets if they need to in those situations.
Yep. And we have, within our portfolios, we have a relatively large exposure to liquid assets. So why do we do that if a client needs liquidity for all these purposes? Why are some of the reasons that I think I know the answer, but why we keep these assets within the portfolio?
Sure, because some of those liquid assets have different properties to assets that are more liquid, such as shares, but they have more volatility. So liquid assets have slightly less volatility, so they have different characteristics, and it's important to have those characteristics within the portfolio. So as long as we've got the mix right between having liquidity and volatility and illiquid assets and less volatile assets, then clients will be able to achieve the outcomes they need to achieve. But in determining that mix, we need to keep in focus what the client's goals and objectives are. So we very much take that into account when determining that right mix of assets for clients.
When we're talking to clients about accessing liquidity within their portfolio, there's a number of different strategies that we need to consider. Some of it is to do with what structure, what types of assets we actually want to do. Do we do a strategic sale within a specific portfolio? It can also be what structure that we have within the portfolio as well. So is it in superannuation? Is it in pension phase? Are there liquid assets in there? There's all these considerations. What are some of the things that you deal with running through those strategies?
Yeah, so obviously a key one would be the tax consequences. And as you mentioned, when considering the different structures and the liquidity within those different structures, the tax implications for those structures will be different. So a key consideration will be capital gains tax and whether a client will be impacted by a sale of an asset. If, for example, if a client's in pension phase, then there will be no tax impact from a capital gains tax point of view. Otherwise, there will be impacts in other structures.
And I guess we also need to consider, liquidity time horizons, how long things take to sell. Some assets take longer than others. So that would mean that we can structure a liquidity event depending on timeframes, the client's timeframes.
Absolutely. So, for example, it takes 2 or 3 days to sell direct equities, but it can take up to 6 months to access funds from private equity, for example. So, giving consideration to the assets is the type of asset is very important, and that comes back to our topic around liquidity and understanding how much liquidity is in the client's portfolio. Obviously, another consideration for clients is whether they can access external liquidity, such as finance, so that they don't necessarily have to sell assets within their portfolio.
Thanks, Simon. I think we covered off on a lot of the major points that we need to talk to clients about when we're dealing with liquidity. I hope everybody listening found the conversation useful. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Simon, me, or any of the team at Arrow. Goodbye for now.